Um, let's go ahead and move on to our next division here. That one's pretty simple because we've got pretty much the same take on it. AFC North, again, this one here for me was a very tough division to kind of break down.
Super tough.
It's very competitive. If you take out Cincinnati and Joe Burrow coming back from injury, I think they're going to struggle a little bit. Their offensive line is not very good, but those other three teams are very good. Pittsburgh and Baltimore typically have championship caliber defenses every year. I think that's going to stay true again this year. I do have Pittsburgh making the playoffs because of a switch that happens at some point during the year, and I'll talk about more of that in my bold predictions. But I do have Pittsburgh making it as a wild card team. It was really tough for me to go between Cleveland and Pittsburgh because, again, they're all stacked. I just feel that I can trust Pittsburgh's defense more than I'll be able to trust Baker Mayfield. Although he's matured a lot, I think that's going to be the difference, and it's going to be the difference between Pittsburgh making the playoffs and Cleveland making the playoffs. So I got Baltimore. I think they're making a deep playoff run, not just winning this division, but I think they're going deep into January, maybe even February. As far as how long they'll play. I know they did lose J.K. Dobbins, but, Lamar is their number one running back anyway, so they didn't really lose their number one running back. And Gus Edwards averaged 5 yards a carry throughout his career, and I think he's going to be able to step in and fill the role that J.K. Dobbins did pretty well. And, again, their defense is always stacked, and they're well coached, as we know. John Harbaugh is one of the best coaches in the NFL. So that's my take on this division. I'll bounce it over to you and see what you got.
Yeah, I've also got Baltimore right there at number one. Combination of Lamar and the coaching and the scheme. Those guys have a ton of talent over there. Their defense is phenomenal every single year under Coach Harbaugh. So I do have them there at number one. I see Lamar Jackson going for his third season in a row, rushing over 1,000 yards, especially with the additional game. If the addition of Sammy Watkins could possibly push him over that 30 touchdown per year mark, that would be helpful. I think the last few years he's been over 20 TDs. Last year it was 26 TDs. And that was through the air. So, Lamar, he could progress this year. They did get an upgrade. And I know Watkins has been kind of a journeyman around the league, but he's a good receiver and he could be really helpful for Lamar in the grand scheme of things. Cleveland, just like you, it was really, really tough for me to go in and put Cleveland ahead of Pittsburgh or put Pittsburgh ahead of Cleveland. But what it all boiled down to is I think, Baker Mayfield brings a lot more to the table at this point in his career than Ben Roethlisberger does because his ability to move the pocket, create plays with his legs. And then Cleveland's defense, I put them right up there with Pittsburgh. Myles Garrett's an animal. They've got a phenomenal defensive line. They've added some depth on their team. So I think the continuity, they have a lot of momentum from last year making the playoffs. They're excited. That was their first year making the playoffs. They have a lot to play for.
Yeah.
So that's why I put them above Pittsburgh. Could go either way. Honestly, either one of these teams, even with Baltimore, as much as I like Baltimore, I think either one of these three teams could finish number one, number two, or number three. They're that good. And Pittsburgh, I have them at number three. Of course, that's just based on how I feel now. I don't think Roethlisberger, is gonna see the sideline this year. Your bold prediction, I'll let you get to that, but unless there's an injury, I don't think he's going to see the sideline, or unless it's coming off of a score, coming off of the field. But they're going to have a great season. Claypool, I'm looking to have a big season over there. He's going to score a lot of touchdowns, and their defense, as always, is really good. Cincinnati, I'd be curious to see, how they fare with Joe Burrow in a full season. They do have some talent at receiver, Boyd, Higgins, and Chase now. So, that could be a good receiving trio. Their offensive line definitely needs some work. Their defense needs some work. But, a good quarterback can mask up some deficiencies. And I'd be curious to see where they finish out the year.
Yeah, I agree with a couple of things you said there. Really, when it comes to Baltimore, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh, you could pick any of those teams to win the division. Again, I based my difference between Pittsburgh and Cleveland off of I trust Pittsburgh's defense. They're really good. I think Ben Roethlisberger is going to be in better shape this year than he was last year. He had the off season and everything to kind of get in shape. Last year he was coming off his elbow injury, didn't have the ramp up of the preseason and everything like that. So I don't disagree that at this point in their careers, Baker Mayfield probably has the higher ceiling and can bring more to the table and do more. But there's something to be said for experience, and as we know, Ben's got a lot of that. And one thing we all know about Ben Roethlisberger, you can say what you want to say about him off the field and his personal, things and issues, but he is, quote unquote, if there is such a thing on a football field, he's a warrior. He's one of those dudes that's going to give everything he's got until the clock runs out and his team is no longer playing. So I think based off of that and pride and the fact that Cleveland did beat them last year, I think that they're looking to get a little bit of revenge, and they're going to be motivated, to come back and show that last year's start at 11-0 wasn't a fluke, and they're better than that wild card performance that they turned in. So, and to be honest with you, if you think about it, as bad as they started that playoff game against Cleveland with the turnovers and everything like that, they were still in the game until about halfway through the fourth quarter, and then they kind of just ran out of time. But they were still in the game after they kind of got their bearings and took that hit in the mouth from Cleveland. It was very competitive for the rest of the game, and one or two mistakes that Cleveland could have made, Baker didn't make them, and hopefully he continues to do that for Cleveland's sake. But had he had, a couple of those Baker Mayfield mistakes popped up in that game, we might have been talking about a different story as far as, the outcome. So I agree with you as well. Cincinnati, they're kind of like what we talked about with the Jets. They're still a young team. They've got some pieces, but they got a lot of work to do on both sides of the offensive and defensive line. They've got some work to do there. I'm really excited to see if Joe Burrow can play a whole season. I am excited to see what he can do with those receivers. He tends to be a guy that makes receivers better. He did that at LSU. He was doing that last year before he got hurt. And if he comes back and he's 100% healthy, I think that he continues to do that with that young core. And we may be talking about Cincinnati in the same light that we're talking about these other teams, next year or the year after that. So.
The AFC has been really strong the last few years.
Definitely. And this was a tough division to kind of pick. But again, I went with Baltimore just because overall they're well coached. I think they have the best quarterback in the division. And just their style of play is best suited for the weather that these teams are going to go through and things like that. I just think they're best suited. So that's why I went with Baltimore.